Our next guest was just sworn in for his second term and says he proudly voted against her. Joining us right now is Republican Texas Congressman Lance Gooden. Congressman, good morning to you and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Her margin was really narrow. I know there were no defections on the Republican side. She had 5 or 6, and in fact, Jared Golden voted for Tammy Duckworth, and Connor Lamb voted for Hakeem Jeffries. She must have done some real arm twisting behind the scenes.
She must have. You know, Nancy Pelosi is very good at counting votes. No one questions that. She always has been. She's had about 100 years now to figure out the process, so she's a master of that process. But I do know that it was close. They were sweating it. They didn't know if they would have members that'd be unable to show up. You know, they've been proxy voting this whole year. So there were members in the chamber yesterday that had made their first trip to Washington, D.C. in about 8 months. And so there was uncertainty. One member I know claimed to have had COVID 6 days ago. They had allegedly set up plexiglass for her in the event that they needed her vote there at the last minute on the floor. They didn't in the end, but it just goes to show how nervous they were about the whole process.
I think you're referring to Gwen Moore, a Democrat from Wisconsin, announced 6 days earlier she had tested positive for COVID. Didn't say when, didn't say if she was negative, but said she was cleared by her doctors to travel, and so she was in the chamber. You know, I mentioned this a moment ago. After a couple of weeks of really bad publicity, Eric Swalwell, Nancy Pelosi reinstalled him on the Intel Committee after that relationship a number of years ago with the Chinese spy.
It's incredible. The fact that he was even there at all, if she had any knowledge of that, is stunning to me. But after what came out in the last month, that he would still be on that committee is either incompetence or desperation on her part to keep the gavel. I would actually understand the whole needing his vote theory. That would make sense to me, that she had to have his vote to stay speaker. But keeping him on because she actually believes in him is just crazy to me.
But then again, back when he first came in, she was apparently briefed on what had transpired and put him on that anyway. So it really speaks to her judgment.
It's a shame. And we also know that if the situation were reversed, if it were a Republican on that committee, there would be outrage in the streets on the Democratic side.
Absolutely. All right. There is outrage on the in the streets of the Democrats that a number of Republicans, including you, there are 140 House members who plan to challenge the Electoral College certification on Wednesday. What happened during the election that has pushed you to the point where you say, hey, we got to talk about this before we vote?
Well, you know, in my election in Texas, just at a much smaller scale level, poll watchers representing my campaign were turned away from polling places in Democrat-run Dallas County. And I thought to myself, if this is happening to me here, what's happening in these other areas? And then come to find out there were numerous instances, allegations, sworn testimony by people who are perjuring themselves if they're not telling the truth. Numerous counts of voter fraud across the country in various areas. We've not been able to have full audits of these ballots in Georgia. When you have a recount and you just recount the same ballots all over again, all you're doing is recounting bad numbers. We've been refused full signature audits in places like Georgia. I heard yesterday that if in fact there was this fraud, that the Senate runoff for Mr. Perdue is not even necessary. So we've just got so many questions that voters want answers to, my constituents want answers to, and I don't understand why Democrats refuse to even have a conversation about these allegations. You would think that they would want them cleared up going into January 20th.
Right. That's what I've read. The main thing, Republicans just simply want to have the discussion, want to have the debate. Ultimately, though, I would imagine you would like some sort of election reform so that this never happens again.
That would be nice. It's difficult to imagine a scenario where we have meaningful reform if Nancy Pelosi's speaker, especially if we lose in Georgia tomorrow. The Georgia races tomorrow are so critical. But we've got to at least shine a light on the fraud and these allegations and put these to bed. And I don't think that we've had answers. I don't understand why the other side calls my side, those of us who have come out in opposition to certifying these results, why they have called us un-American, why they say it's irresponsible. I don't understand why Republicans in the House, some of my own colleagues, would actually come out and say that what we're doing is un-American and unwise. I think getting to the root of these allegations and determining what fraud did or did not take place is very American and is our duty as members of Congress.
And we should point out that Democrats have done it in the past, so it's not unprecedented. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck on your second term.
Thank you. Take care.
You bet.